The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation has opened registration for the 52nd Annual Legislative Conference, which will be held from September 20th to the 24th, I should say, at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in D.C., with Delegate Stacy and Senator Raphael Warnock serving as honorary co-chairs. The conference is themed Securing Our Democracy, Protecting Our Freedoms, Uplifting Our Cultures. Joining Austin Cooper and myself this morning, special guest, the senator himself, Reverend Raphael Warnock. How you doing, sir?
It's great to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Senator, we'll jump right into it. Given the theme of this year's conference, Securing Our Democracy, Protecting Our Freedoms, Uplifting Our Culture, what specific initiatives or policies do you believe are crucial in achieving these goals, particularly in the context of current challenges facing our democracy?
Again, great to be here with you. We are very proud to present this year's 52nd annual conference. The Congressional Black Caucus, I believe, when the history of our country is written, will be recognized for the central role it has played in securing our freedoms, in protecting our democracy, in uplifting the ways in which a culture defined by the struggle against oppression has been so important for liberating the whole country. And there's certainly no more important moment than this. This is a moral moment in our country. We are literally witnessing an assault on the democratic principles that make us a free country. And the fact that someone like me got elected from the state of Georgia, a state in the heart of the old Confederacy, is good news, but it should not lull us into sleep, into thinking that we have arrived. We have a great struggle in front of us with protecting voting rights. I was in a fierce struggle to secure the voices of the very people who sent me back to the Senate for a full 6-year term. So we'll be focused on voting rights. We'll be focused on protecting our various other rights, civil rights, human rights. And we will be bringing together a wonderful constellation of policymakers and critical thinkers, elected officials, and ordinary citizens to make our country as great as its ideals.
Yeah, and Senator, before I throw it over to Austin, I know Austin's chomping at the bit. It's always a privilege to talk to you. Can you share some highlights or key sessions that are planned for the conference that you believe might have a more significant impact, particularly on the African-American community at large?
Well, there are a whole range of sessions reflective of the work that we're doing right here in Congress. Everything, again, from protecting our democracy and protecting voting rights to dealing with the need to cap the cost of prescription drugs to make sure that people have access to affordable health care, which I believe is a human right, to dealing with the issue of gun violence. I will do a conference on Wednesday afternoon focused on the issue of gun violence and gun safety. We have seen in our country this year a mass shooting every day. In fact, there have been more mass shootings this year than there have been days in this year. And that's not counting the ongoing crisis of violence that takes the lives of way too many people in Black and brown communities every single year. And so I'm proud to welcome hip hop artists from Atlanta, Quavo, along with one of our grassroots organizations focused on this work, and my colleague in the House, Representative Lucy McBath, who tragically lost her son to racialized gun violence many years ago, which spurred her entrance really into public life. It's important for us to have a family conversation in America about gun violence, and I'm looking forward to my own workshop on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, and we know Austin, he mentioned Quavo. He lost a very significant loved one to senseless gunplay, if you will, gun violence, if you will. I'll throw it to you, Austin.
Senator, good to see you, sir. Senator, how has the ALC evolved since its inception, Annual Legislative Conference since its inception, and how has it evolved since you have been in the Senate, sir?
Well, you know, I'm one of the newcomers, but I stand with a deep sense of pride. I'm deeply honored to stand on the shoulders of the folks who were here in the early days, who paved the way, including my own parishioner, John Lewis, as well as others who were here before him. But that work continues. As I think about John Lewis, I think about the fact that we, in those early days of the conference, the Congressional Black Caucus was key to making sure that we reauthorized time and time again the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Those struggles continue, as I have been very focused on making sure that we pass, and we intend to introduce again the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as the Freedom to Vote Act. And so this is a relay race, and it's our turn to stand up for the values that make our country great.
Yeah, well, and Senator, it's certainly, again, we just want to say it's a privilege to have you with the Black Press and the Washington Informer. Healthcare, education, and economic empowerment are vital components of the conference's agenda. Can you discuss some of the innovative approaches or policy recommendations that will be explored? Any surprises during the week? We always get some surprises.
Well, if I tell you that it's not a surprise, I want to encourage everybody to come to the conference. I mean, you know, this is a conference that never disappoints. We bring together the best and the brightest, not just elected officials, but people who are activists at the grassroots level, who help us to understand the work that we must do on everything from voting rights to healthcare to gun violence to creating jobs and opportunity in communities all across our country. The message is this: look, federal policy makes a difference. Elections matter. Here I stand as a United States senator, but before I was a senator, I was a Head Start kid. Head Start, for example, a program that gives young preschool age kids access to the kind of learning that they need, that both instructs and inspires. I'm a product of Upward Bound, of Pell Grants and low interest student loans, which is why I've been so focused on addressing the issue of student debt. Too many of our kids have a mortgage before they have a mortgage. And we know that Black people and people of color are disproportionately impacted by this. The data is very, very clear. If we can relieve some of the student debt, which the administration has made quite a bit of progress on, particularly when you think about the ways in which that fight has been enjoined by those who apparently don't want equity in our country. If we can get more of that done, it would begin to close the racial wealth gap. And all of this at a time when we're seeing an assault on affirmative action in the higher ed space. The question is, will we be two different Americas, or will we push the country towards its ideals, e pluribus unum, out of many? One, a nation where a kid's outcome is not based on their parents' income. And the Congressional Black Caucus has always been central to that fight. I'm proud to be a part of that caucus, proud to do that work. And we look forward to the conversation each year, because we understand that change doesn't happen from the top down, it happens from the bottom up. And so faith leaders, activists, grassroots folks, parents, ordinary people, folks who are interested in securing our democracy, in protecting our freedoms, including reproductive rights, and interested in uplifting the culture that inspires all of us to keep fighting the fight. Let's come together and have one more great conversation, one more great family reunion.
That sounds great, Austin.
Senator, just two quick questions, sir. How will you evaluate the success of the ALC?
Well, I don't know that it's my job to evaluate it. I mean, I think it's important for all of us who have the incredible honor of representing our neighbors and our friends in the Congress to make sure that we stay connected to them. One of the things that I said to the people of Georgia on my most recent election night is that even as I wrestle with you through difficult problems, some problems that sometimes seem intractable, and if we're honest, change is slow, it's hard, it comes in starts and fits. Here is my promise: I'll always walk with you, even as I work for you. And so the significance of the ALC is that it brings all of us together so that we're held accountable in a network of accountability, and we're informed by our best insights, which often come from those who are right there on the front line doing the work every single day. When you talk about the African American community, you're talking about people in every walk of life. You're talking about school teachers. You're talking about first responders, people in our healthcare fields who've seen what a lack of access to healthcare actually looks like on the line. We're talking about police officers. We're talking about people in the civil rights community, faith leaders, and as well as those who, again, inspire us and challenge us with their words and with their poetry on this year in which we celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip hop. I think the story of our legislative fights can't be told without reference to Grandmaster Flash and Public Enemy and a whole range of others who through their words have challenged us and provoked us.
Yeah, Run DMC.
Run DMC.
Senator, I have one final question, if I
Don't
may.
leave out the women moaning.
There you go.
Senator,
I'm showing my age now.
Senator, do you have any plans to introduce legislation to establish an Alpha Phi Alpha chapter in the Congress? You know, I'm representing today, brother.
Listen, don't encourage me. You know I will if I can.
You know what? You guys have that conversation in Georgia, okay? Well, Senator, key takeaways for participants. I mean, it's going to be lawmakers, activists, scholars, thought leaders at the conference, as always. But what do you hope will be the key takeaway for participants after engaging in these critical discussions and forums?
Listen, you know, you're talking to a preacher, and when folks gather on Sunday morning, it's always my goal that they won't think that worship is the end of it, that alone is the point. We enter the worship, we depart to serve. So I hope that after we've had these discussions and these conversations, we will walk out inspired with renewed passion, zeal, commitment, but also insight as we think about our strategy moving forward to indeed secure our democracy, protect our freedoms, uplift the culture. We're in a fight. And while Black folk and Black communities might, if you will, be the canary in the mine, we might be the first indications when there's trouble because our communities are marginalized in so many ways. This really is a fight for the whole country. Yeah. And I think there's just so much at stake. And so I take that fight very seriously. But I'm glad we added culture to the theme this year, because I think you need to keep the joy. You need to have a song in your heart. You need to have some poetry, some imagination, some artistic vision, even as you fight for the best.
You know, a couple of years ago, I know that's the last question, but a couple of years ago,
you like a Baptist preacher. That's in closing. You've had 3 closings now.
Let me tell you something. It's my encore. But a couple of years ago, someone by the name of Cory Booker and someone by the name of Kamala Harris were the co-chairs, and you know that Mrs. Harris became, you know, of course, Senator Harris became Vice President Harris. So I'm just throwing that out there, Senator. Just throwing that out there.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We've got to do everything we can to reelect President Biden and Vice President Harris.
Well, the 52nd Annual Legislative Conference, September 20th, it kicks off. It's always perhaps the biggest event of the year in Washington, D.C. at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center. And we just enjoyed some time with the co-chair, Reverend Raphael Warnock,
Thanks,
who's
everybody.
serving as the co-chair. Thanks so much.
Keep
We
safe.
will see you there.
All right.